Hello, Rachael Maddow, MSNBC. Hello, Rachael Maddow on MSNBC. Um, you guys have a nature debate, quality debate that is leaving out what our founders communicated about their words, and is replacing James Madison's plan. James Madison had a plan with founders behind him that George Washington agreed to help and to use that plan. It's and they were crazy fact nature, torture, extortion, slavery method laws against everyone, northern colonies and southern colonies, and with black, the way sickly distinctly too, northern colonies, southern colonies, with slavery, and they isolate that subject, leaving out how there was extortion, torture, slavery, sickly distinctly against everyone. And even though it was and it is still positive that it's sickly non-distinctly against everyone too, rather than self-value that and use that, we have it replaced. We have other things, others ourselves blamed, right where our founders communicated in their communications for us to blame the breaching method. There were internationally monitored conversations tied to um, the nature of infrastructure and its roles with that, with how black people are still like wanting and needing housing while they're stacked upon, like in New York City, more than other people for a breaching method. We also have readings of truths used for lies, a whole bunch of books that are roles with nature debate, the names of the people, the sciences used, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought from off those locations, but then hyper additionally from through other apparent motivations, nature's needs, interests too, relative to how we're even speaking about these serious subjects, leaving out black people's white bodies, all kinds of revelations in nature shows up and how the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born. And again, we have their found in the nature debate influenced by their communications about that, and the breaching method changed. Self-valued roles with uses of their words, leaving that out and obfuscating it and changing it, faking it, and then saying, being experts on knowledge of good and evil. Oh, but do you know who so and so was in 14th thing? Or do you know what this president did with that? Oh, well, then what do you know? I know a breaching method was entrenched. And other things, others ourselves, are still forced blame for it. And the names involved with that at all locations, areas, and states. And the ones I know of, they came with other names, other whole bunch of different countries they're exploiting are shared at the campuses where they're directed to lie those things about those things and to value the identities of their jobs. You know how many identities of law there are? They're going to speak for law. They're still predicate acts of facts roles. They're still, in other words, black people's whites of eyes. See the whites of eyes. On top of the tactically denatured suburbs, let alone the cities. Anyone who denies that is going to have inherent to act to and progressive to the logic demonstration of the same things. Treatments of American history, Native Americans also communicating other than our founders communicated. James Madison forced the Monroe Doctrine. James Madison's plan, but he still didn't have free speech. Everyone's speech was measured and maintained collusions against everyone else, including with helping everyone else in responses to all that caused and kept and keeps. Keeping the criminal insidiousness natures of positive and negatives to hide behind. And with nature increasingly itself demonstrating to us a human fact human nature breaching methods of scientific value. As not just it's also in the communications of our founders to us declassified and about why and how they had to declassify that. So we have to pay attention to the breaching method that makes measured and maintained people separating subjects like witch trials. You don't separate that from how slavery was entrenched in northern colonies, southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. In other words, and no one even allows honesty about the extortion of George Washington and about his rules counter extorting, like at Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, effectively used to force England and the other countries to fight with each other and to relent upon the crazy internationally monitored conversations and prison systems and all that it took to get sustained roles with those crazy things they had north and south against every single person sustained since some ancient times and sustained against Native Americans. And then George Washington came over. There are proofs, but you guys too. We have to pay attention to criminally foreign influence databases and uses of them that were actually was recorded. We have to use how it measured and maintained types of, had the campuses, it has them still. The nature debate contains people, oh, you know more than a doctor, or you know more than this professional, this expert. In other words, we have black people's rights of eyes. Witch trials are about both sides of criminal, even if they're completely made up. They're about both sides of criminal and civil cases, the courts, the people speaking about it, reporting on it, and the breaching method collusion at the same time with a whole bunch of different countries individually grouped and together, speaking about humanity's species body of individual bodies anyway, as systems tactical terror from nature's also positive onto itself, but pretending other or sensing that body. For the breaching method, including that body was a majority of people, including it was every single person. And any grouping of countries that comes entertaining locations, areas, and states, syntax, faction, nature, qualities, aspects of nature, let alone with convictions, let alone with convictions with guilt. Assignments, leaving out the breaching method, where we are supposed to have no forgiveness. We are not supposed to leave out the breaching method. And we are supposed to observe people that are telling us to have no forgiveness, doing so as collusions with the breaching method to keep the breaching method left out. Everything it did and never stopped doing through ourselves. So to keep itself from being discerned, the breaching method is assigned to value. We're going to observe. That's one of the reasons we observe. It's replaced. It shows, in other words, disgusting, in other words, mistreatments only of the most critical subjects. And everyone's saying, okay, that's why we have to blame that. But when we're debating about it and what to do about it, it's always collusion /S. So we have to focus on the predicate acts with facts method that simultaneously where it's true all ways. Anyone who tries to debate that all location /S, even our landscape theater tactically denatured to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, and to make people reliant upon nature's of only means to cause positive value nature progressions. Acts of natures, if you're going to self-value rules of making criminal insidious natures of positives. All we do is agree on these things. We can change the whole nature of industry. What is positive? So right now, it's things that feel good are also offering the punishments for it because they're not naturally. All kinds of everyone's measuring it and what everyone else is. They're changing and faking everyone's what they say when they use short words properly for nature. Like how we have black people's rights of eyes. This is inseparable from any proper legal treatment of any subject, like witch trials. You don't leave out how there were the crazy laws overtly against black northern colonies, southern colonies, and how they play it too. They have grown people, even doctors and people reading their books, all white, black, and leaving out the breaching methods rolls with that, and with exceptions. So they bring up diversity. They leave out the shell game roles they have with that. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, timing where people are going to go roles, pick sides of issues, and they're educators with that. There are constantly the same ones involved worst with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and other countries where uses where they have like MSNBC has prosecutors and judges there recorded proofs that communicate with them, involved with the ones with Connecticut's Channel 3 News and Fox Connecticut News, and next to them, they have roles of people with fire departments that are reportedly also involved with and like where Khalil goes, there are proofs he's got roles with nuclear, because these are people involved with uses of right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, and interbranch forging and switching names, and reported by themselves, family members, as people that were involved at the World Trade Center and spots next to it, including a court next to it, and all sides of cases interstate, with the courts themselves putting the same sequence ships, is another thing that ties people with the World Trade Center predicate acts and with worse than war crimes. And see, people don't know how to respond to this, and the breaching method knew that, but they respond anyway, fake. That's why you shouldn't change and fake what people say. Then you make me have to explain it, and you let all these countries are involved. So WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack, as there rose with a whole bunch of natures of organized crimes and names at the same time that forced the principal child abuser and other natures of organized crime. The same families involved with elderly homes and with the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices and names next to it or driving by through time. Increasingly involved criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought with my neighbors, the ones involved with wire crimes of the Wethersfield police making confessions too about their forging names and switching names, fabricating police reports, fake ties to me since I was a kid. Increasingly people tied to Mendez, people named Mendez with Wethersfield Police, Hartford Police, and Rocky Hill Police families, and the Britain Superior Court involved with child offenders of kids, including sexual and medical, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and these inter and intracultural identity theft, fraud, slander roles, and falsified police reports, putting us in fake quotations, all kinds of different ways, a whole bunch of different names increasingly. These are also people collusions at the and next to the with people at and next to the state capitol, and with people that like with the syntax in advertisements by Sandy Hook Promise, where they have poor victims involved with collusions against themselves and others with the same crimes. In other words, all kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of the campuses are recorded involved with forensics names too, involve all kinds of differences, rackets. Increasingly, people tied to Wethersfield mayors, and will tell you that, in other words, what they told the mayors have been spreading lies about me and other politicians too. At the same time, with overt criminal, though, certain type of victim / hyper victim. In other words, so it is proven. In other words, you guys are leaking this stuff while pretending other. Then you want to have a big major debate. You're like, you can't take the answers without leaking more. What are they doing with the fire departments? With the Wethersfield police switching and forging names, with the state police and other police departments involved with the same house / S, involved with increasingly with dozens of falsified police reports rolls with them. Or maybe a dozen. But against all kinds through the years. And they put more than one fake police report for the same thing and put fake things in databases. Increasingly, these are people who have been planting evidences and acting for other people to take pictures on all sides of cases, and they just change and fake what's recorded anyway. Increasingly, they've been I never saw Eric Burgess on the campus of Central Connecticut State University in my life. He's one of the ones involved with the Dean Judd and his kids, involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a whole bunch of different countries and criminal enterprises and private ones, and a whole bunch of people tied to it. Joseph Dennis, involved with men and women, intercities, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and educators tied to him, and a former Mayor Gold. And people I don't even know the names of that from other areas that planted evidences on my street, fake ties, fake natures, fake exceptions, who have roles, all kinds of abuses of elderly kids and veterans homes, clearer than day, built just like the cities, clearer than day, not free, and tortured and extorted, in fact, cheating nature enslaved, at locations A through Z. The suburbs look exactly alike, almost exactly like in America, Russia, and Ukraine, because this breaching method was entrenched right through our country's foundings. Vladimir Putin tried to explain this to Tucker Carlson on YouTube, or where I did a video about it. There's a link to it, and he cut him off, partially because at campuses A through Z in America, what our founders communicated about how they didn't have free speech, and everyone's speech was measured by a breaching method, and how it was entrenched. Really crazy laws against everyone. Everyone had to pretend other or be sentenced. In other words, but we have other communicators for our founders than they communicated. There are self-guided rules of what they said, until that's replaced also then more rules later using what others said after them, also leaving that, having left that out. They also demonstrated for us not to leave that out either. Like the nature of debate forced contains quality aspects in nature, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong. And that's forced, in other words. So use of location /S is what the collusion was about, with that, and is about, where a human fact nature breaching method is an answer being and having been replaced. An answer given by nature itself, because it's one of the things true always that slavery was about. It's one of the things true always that witch trials are about, even if they're made up. It's definitely one of the things they were about together, even if the witch trials thing was made up. And it's right next to the web. It's right next to Webb House with no "the" in front of it. And then they changed the house to the Webb Stevens house. And the nature of the debate and regarding motivations with that, and it requires descriptions of their own passions and emotions and other people's when they describe it. They can't afford that to discern. And passions and emotions, like, for example, used relative to how we have black people's rights of eyes. And this is inseparable from, as evidences, from subjects that have it left out and replaced. Exactly the way the breaching method employed that to be, too. See, there are problems between black themed and white themed, and there are collusions with the same ones. Originally and still. Even like our founders communicated for us to understand how international law bodies were entrenched here together, with differences racketeering worse than war crimes. And then they were born. So there are black, white, themed, and all that. So they were used remotely too. All that. There's not, in other words, even Native Americans against Native Americans. And then Christopher Columbus came over. And then our founders were born. And no one had free speech yet. But they all got behind James Madison's plan. And they forced the other founders, another third of our founders, counter-extorted. Because there are proofs that there were also Native Americans behind their plan, which also the Constitution unabridged. And how and why we have rights are too numerous to have to list them. that also shows in our voices, in our nature, that even if we're not Native Americans, we're going to liberate their syntax, the treatment of the court syntax towards them, their difference, the people, because our books are replaced. Communications of our founders. Pounders of drum, we all become. Black sings, thank you, Black sings.